We're all
editor.
together. I was also
Editor.
figuring this out today.
I am old. Oh my gosh. I'm looking for Achieng to join us. That's Balozi?
Yeah, this is Zaha, our Balozi.
Okay. We are waiting for editor Achieng, right?
Yes. Let me just WhatsApp her. Because I know she was also asking how to join.
Okay.
I told her once you go live, she should just request.
Okay. All right. If you're just joining us, karibuni sana on this live. It's sad that we have to convene in this way to talk about the same issue.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the same issue from years ago on our right to life as women. We are literally begging that you let us live. It's crazy, it's absurd, but we're here. But you know what? We won't stop. So as we wait for the rest of you to join, and as we wait for editor Achieng, I think, do we have a good quorum right now to start, Noni, or should we wait for her?
Should wait. I think we should, on that note,
wait. Yeah.
On that note, which is something we have been doing in every engagement we have been having with media and everyone else, is that we've been asking for 1 minute of silence for all the victims. And
I was about to go there.
I would like to read out some names.
Yeah.
And it's not the exhaustive name because we know that over 500 women have been killed from 2019 to date. In 2023 alone, it was over 156. Just last year. Yes. So I'd like us to start by reading a few names and maybe just giving a moment of silence for all the women we're going to represent on the streets on the 27th, but all the women we're also fighting for. So I would like to start by reading Eunice Kiama's name, who was a lecturer at Kenya Medical Training in Mwingi, who was stabbed to death in her car. I'd like to start by reading Mildred Odira's name, who was found in City Mortuary after taking a taxi in the wee hours of the morning after she fell sick. So she was going to seek medical assistance. I'd like to read Helen Kwamboka's name, who was killed by her boyfriend for alleged infidelity, and she was found dead with deep cuts on her forehead. Just today, I think all of us are aware, there was a report that a 50-plus woman was also found, who was found dead with, some of her sensitive parts chopped off. So I'd like us to just take a moment of silence as we wait for editor to join, and then, we can begin the session.
All right, so let's observe a minute of silence to the departed sisters who've left us through acts of femicide.
So Kate, thank you so much for giving us your platform, because yes, there's editor. I think she's typing in the comments. Editor, you need to press we were all figuring it out. We're all old people. So you need to press the video button to request yourself to join Kate's live.
Amekwama.
I can see in the comment.
Okay. Wait.
Noni, let me confirm. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we are just waiting for editor Achieng to join us, and Noni just mentioned 156 women died last year. 150. My work today was to provide this platform, and I'm very emotional about this issue. And one thing that is getting me so worked up is how we continue to be, especially women, being apologists for this issue and talking about values and morals and religious beliefs and just trivializing the issue on morals. A woman was beheaded, cooking for her family. She didn't have morals. She doesn't know Jesus. So today I'm trying, I even told Noni I need you to moderate because I'm very emotional about this issue, and I don't think we are seeing, especially women, our fellow women, just like trivializing the issue to morals and your religion, and you simply think someone deserves to die because they are not as holy as you are.
Yes, I think let's just start because, as editor is figuring it out, let's just start. So, Kate, thank you so much for offering your platform to us. I'll introduce myself. My name is Modhoni Maingi, and I am a national coordinator for the End Femicide movement, specifically working in media. Oh, there we go.
There she is. Hi, editor.
Hi. How are you?
Oi. Mezeka, we don't even know how to. Karibu sana.
Excellent. Thank you.
Asante sana. I hope you guys are getting me clearly.
Yes, we are.
100%.
Oh, thank you so much.
So,
Tony,
Anita, we've just done the moment of silence and read a few names who are victims who were standing for during the marches and also standing for the policy changes. And we're just starting with introducing ourselves. My name is Modhoni Maingi. I'm a national coordinator with the End Femicide movement, specifically working in communications and media. The End Femicide movement is a collective. It's a collective of over, I think now it's over 1,000 organizations. Correct me if I'm wrong, Editor and Zaha. But it's over 1,000 organizations. But actually, more importantly, what we learned from our experience in our other marches is that we needed a movement where any Kenyan could join and not feel like they were a part of, say, an organizational logo. They could take it and run with it. How best they could participate in putting an end to this vice. And I think one of the best testaments that we've seen with this movement is, a platform such as this with you, Kate, and many other influencers and many other people who have spoken up, who are seeing the necessary need for not just leaving this up to the activists and the traditional organizations who are mandated with, sort of like ending GBV around the country. So that's a brief introduction on myself. And then I'll hand it over to Zaha and editor. And then Kate, we would love to hear from you on why this is such a passionate topic for you. It's a sad topic, but why this is such a passionate topic for you and why you felt it was important for you to give us your platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noni. I should have prepared for small ambush, but I think it's okay. My name is Zaha Indimuli. I'm the CEO and founder of an organization called Amali Youth Organization. What we basically do is that we're a group of around 2,500 young individuals, young professionals to be precise. And what we basically focus on is on the aspects of youth, but in regards to green growth, circular economies, inclusive youth development and health. And Kate, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your platform. We lastly met at the UNFPA Innovation Summit, and it's super interesting to see you here again. Thank you for using your platform to speak on these issues, because I think it's one thing for us to plan about a march, but it needs to be a bit more collective. And I think you holding the hand of this campaign, I think, goes a long way in ensuring that we actually speak the facts to a larger audience. So thank you. Once again, Noni, editor, and I think we've been working hand in hand at the national campaign on the End Femicide. It's been quite a journey, and I'm actually really, really glad we're having to talk about this at Free Will, to some extent, whereby we have time to talk about the facts that we've been able to get from our engagement. And I'm just hoping this is a discussion that enlightens people on what exactly is going on. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Noni. Thank you, Zaha. Thank you, Kate. This is a special day for me because I've been speaking the whole day about femicide. As you see, I'm really angry with whatever is happening around the country because when I sit down, I'm sure I'm the next woman to be killed. And my anger has brought me here today so that at least we can talk as women and see the solution to end femicide in this country. Most of the women have been killed, and it is really, really sad. And again, I want to appreciate you for using your platform because it means all women are concerned about this agenda and women are ready to push back femicide in our country. My name is Edita Ochieng. I come from Kibra. Most of the time I say I'm a feminist witch. I hope you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'm a witch and I'm a feminist. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Santi.
It's me. Oh, my name is Kathy Actress. I'm an entertainer. I am a mother to both gender, by the way. And I'm very passionate about anything women's rights, because I believe this is my calling. This is why I was put on this God's green earth, to give a voice to people who can't speak for themselves. So me giving this platform is not a favor. It's a responsibility for me. Yeah.
So I'm the moderator for today. So I will be asking all three of you to just share your views on some of the questions that I'm going to ask. So we've been saying the term femicide across the country, and a lot of people are asking, what is the difference between femicide and murder? What is the difference between femicide and homicide? And so I'd like to hear from yourselves what your understanding of femicide is, but also I'm also reading the comments as a moderator to also raise. So yes, Kate, because you gave us the platform, please start. What is your view on femicide versus homicide, and why is this an important thing for us to push for?
In a layman's language, like femicide is generally like killing a targeted group, which is women. Like it's just killing women. It doesn't matter for what reason, just by targeting women and unaliving women. That's all I know femicide is. That's my simple understanding.
So Zaha and Edita, you can just share with us what your views are on the difference between homicide and femicide, and why we are pushing for femicide reforms.
Edita, please carry on.
It's okay, Zaha. You are ready. It's okay.
Okay. I think the concept of femicide, because by all means, and just to bring out the difference, in both murder, homicide, and femicide, there are all cases where somebody's life is taken away. But when it comes to femicide, which is exactly what we're talking about today, it's a hate crime, first of all. It's a hate crime of systemically killing women and girls. And in these particular cases, you find that femicide is the most brutal and the most extreme manifestations of violence we have against women, because we're also counteractively taking note of the fact that by the time somebody is taking off a woman's life, there's probably have been extreme violence to head to that direction. And I think it's the intentional killing of women. So despite whatever the situation, because the circumstance really doesn't matter, it's the same way we call a murderer, despite the method or rather the reason as to why they killed. And so femicide is intentionally taking a woman's life, a woman or a girl. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Zaha and Kate. And I want to agree with them 100%. Because for me, I'll just describe femicide a little bit. She talked about intention, and that is true. But again, we need to remind ourselves all the time. They kill women because we are women, and it is because of what we are carrying in between our legs. We need to be clear about this. Homicide, most of the time it happens at home, but femicide does not have a location. Whether you are in the pub, whether you are in the church, some people are just seated somewhere and they're planning to kill you. They kill you because you are a woman. And it is really brutal how they do it. And all the time, women and girls are really vulnerable, especially on this developing world that we have things like human trafficking, child trafficking. So all of us here, we are really vulnerable because we know at some point somebody's stalking you. And when they are stalking you, this is when you can become more vulnerable, and eventually men, misogynists, kill women with an intention. Thank you so much.
So I would like to just give caution to everybody who's on this live that what I'm about to read is very triggering. But there's been a report by Odipodev and Africa Uncensored that basically tried to capture, as best as possible, all reported incidences of femicide. And when we look at this report, out of 546 women killed between 2016 to date, 241 were killed by their husband, 130 were killed by their boyfriend, 99 were killed by an unknown relationship, 22 were killed by a friend known to the victim, 19 were killed by an ex-husband, 18 were killed by a family member, and 17 were killed by a boyfriend. So the reality that we have is that what we view as home, which is supposed to be a place of refuge, is actually the site of a lot of these murders. Because if we're saying majority of women are being killed by their husbands, and this is no longer a conversation which has been irresponsibly actually narrated by media, by multiple people, that this it is at
Sorry,
home.
Noni, we are losing you a bit. I don't know whether you're losing her as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we lost you a bit.
Can you hear
Maybe
me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Where did you lose me?
From the husbands when you were relating on that on
So
being the
out
biggest
of 546, 241 have been killed by their husbands
in their homes.
in their homes, 130 by their boyfriends, 99 by a stranger or unknown relationship. So you could have gone for a date, right? 22 by friends, by male friends, 19 by an ex-husband, 18 by a family member, and 17 by an ex-boyfriend. And so when we look at media reports that claim that this is an Airbnb conversation where women are going to meet strangers, and yet when we're looking at the numbers, it's that home, which is a place of refuge, is actually where women are being killed. Or you and your boyfriend's house is actually where women are being killed. My question is, in terms of the rising cases of femicide, especially this question goes to Editor as somebody who has been in the anti-femicide marches for years. What exactly should Kenyans begin to take home, especially considering that we're now going into the march this time? What are the demands that matter? What does the government need to do? Because these figures are concerning, especially because it's happening at home. It's not happening in a stranger's house. It's not happening in an Airbnb.
Thank you so much again. I'm thinking about few things in mind when you asked me this question. And first of all, right now, as Kenyans, we need to push for femicide cases, especially femicide, to get into penal code, because it will mean otherwise for women, and it means the government will guarantee the security of women, and the government is going to budget for femicide cases in terms of prevention and responding to femicide cases. But right now, the government, and especially if we look at this country, the executive, to be sincere, has not spoken against femicide. Other politicians have tried here and there, but there is no tangible solution to it. I'm looking at Mandamano on 27th, and this is one of the way for pushback, because we know a lot of women are killed in this country, and most of these women are vulnerable women. I will begin with sex workers, women, whereby when they are killed, so many people will justify, because they are also, sex work is one of the things that is criminalized in this country. Again, is upon all of us as women to come out clearly. We know some of us have privileges, and women are also different. And if a woman chooses to use their bodies to give services, personally, I don't see a problem with this. We need to push back in Mandamano, and how we need also to push as our demand for femicide to get into penal code, so that at least it can be a criminal offense that everyone knows, if I kill a woman, this is what will happen to me. And for me, that is one of the ways we are going to reduce femicide. But again, at individual level, please let us take care of ourselves. For example, the kind of work that I do, Kate and Priska, most of the people don't like me, and I know it so well. So again, if I'm working in the community that is really harsh because of my feminist ideologies, I need to protect myself every single day when I go inside the community, when I come back. Again, the last thing that I want to talk about is how do we unpack our religious concept, because this is something that has also killed so many women. And I was looking at that data from 2016 up to date, and I feel like this data is not updated, because we know Mackenzie killed most of the people at more than 450 people. And the reality is majority were women. And these women are not put on this data. Again, we need to update our data every single day, and constantly in our programs, we need to be intersectional deliberately, so that this is something that we need to speak about every single day. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, editor. And she mentioned something to do with religion, and it's really funny how the church is awfully quiet. It's painfully quiet on this issue when we know it's happening inside church. But it's appalling. Like, they're quiet. Noni, why do you think the church or religious leaders are so quiet on this issue?
I think for me, as somebody who is a Christian, it always shocks me how far removed the church is from Jesus Christ himself. Because Jesus was a friend, as we know, of sex workers. We know that. Jesus would not be, especially in a majority Christian country, saying that sex workers deserve to die in the most brutal of ways. Jesus was a social justice warrior. He was arguably a feminist. And I say arguably because, and these are my own personal views, I don't believe men can be feminists. I think being a feminist requires that you are somebody who experiences that kind of oppression, and so therefore you can be a feminist. But arguably, a lot of people will say Jesus was actually a feminist. And so it shocks me, not just the silence from the church, but the silence from this government, when we can see that majority of the women dying are the hustlers. The silence, and not just this government, but even the previous government, how Kenyan governments, time immemorial, have been quiet about this issue is honestly shocking. Those are my views on the church. But my next question goes to around victim blaming. And Kate, I saw a comment that you had posted on your stories today. And, I can imagine, as editor and I are saying, because we're very unpopular with these views of ours. So as we're kind of used to receiving the backlash and everything else. But what has your perception been around the victim blaming that you've seen? And what role can people like you and community leaders and influencers play in changing this victim blaming narrative? Because as I read out those statistics, majority of women are being killed in their homes by their husbands. That's the data.
I think the first time I worked with Better for Kenya on issues around GBV, and I didn't understand what victim shaming was, and the way we were socialized as girls, you take the blame for the abuse that you experience. It's you. It has to be you. It's you who caused it. It's you who triggered. It's you. It's all you. And that's how even us as women are socialized, and I can see it in the comments. And I think we need a lot of sensitization and a lot of education. I don't know what we need to go to the ground and to just let women know, it's not fault of ours. When men leave their houses, they don't think about nimevaa nini. They don't think about when you're late. Maybe you attended an event and you're late. You don't start engaging a cab driver in small talk so that he doesn't rape you. Men don't think about these things. They just leave the house. For us, we are thinking, okay, is it too tight? Is it too short? They don't think about these things. So the victim shaming and the way these women, I think the way we've been socialized in African culture is It's demoralizing. It's such a frustrating. It's frustrating our efforts towards ending these atrocities on women, on women's rights. And as much as I am so angry, I understand that these women need to be informed and educated, sensitized, so that they understand that you can have the highest morals. You can live in the safest estates and still experience abuse in your house. It doesn't, a rapist does not care who you are. A murderer does not care it doesn't matter. You can still experience these things. These women did not die because they're not saved. They did not die because they're not well behaved. And just to recap, Noni has just said out of 546 deaths, 241 is by husbands, 130 by boyfriends. It's people that you know, right? So all these apologists, all these femicide apologists, I feel like right now I'm not mad anymore. They just need information and education. And it's sad that they are women. And I hope it doesn't knock on your door.
Yeah.
It's a bit emotional, Noni. I thought I was supposed to be answering this question today.
I think we're all emotional about it. But Editor, I'd like to hear from you in terms of what are some of the hard-hitting things that we're asking for come the 27th? Because we're all mobilizing Kenyans to come on the 27th. I'd also like to share that these are national marches. It's happening in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Busia, Nakuru, Eldoret, Machakos, and Kilifi. Yes. So these are national marches, but Editor, what are some of the hard-hitting things that we need to take forward? Because this is not the first time we've gone for these kinds of marches. So this time, what is the thing that we definitely need to be pushing for?
Right now, I loved how around the country, women have really come together, despite the fact of our diversities, and women have decided we need to march. And again, even the approach of saying we need to go out there in a very peaceful way. It is something that it's so amazing to go to the streets and femicide in the country. But I want just to remind all of us, because everything else that we've talked about, it is key. Talked about this issue, I've been looked of gender, and this is one of the push for our demands in ending femicide. Kindiki is also one of the people that we need to speak with him, because I'm looking at 2019, what happened when we had a national meeting against gender-based violence, against femicide, and they were just blaming women, young women who were killed, women who were killed at home, older women who were killed, and people think that it's younger women alone who are killed, and they will justify anything to ensure that they criminalize, they put a devil in the face of a young woman. But coming out with all these demands, because for me, all the demands that are there are going to the streets, pushing our agenda to the Ministry of Gender, all of them are valid. From asking about if femicide can get, I talked about this previously, into penal code, and if the government of Kenya can assure us for our safety, because this is a demand right now. No woman in Kenya, whether you are in the rurals, whether you are in the slums like me, whether you are in the estate or living in posh areas, are safe. Esther Passaris is my personal friend, and we talked a lot all the time. And one day she was just sharing with me her experience in politics. And at the grassroots level, when we view her, we feel like she has a lot of privileges. And this thing is cutting across. It doesn't know your location. A femicide is not aware of your location. Femicide is not aware of your financial status, because it takes advantage wherever you are because you are a woman. So all the demands that we have, the end product is lazima tukomeshe uwaji wa wanawake. Lazima tukomeshe kwa sababu munaua wanawake sana. And again, something else that was missing, and I think we need to call it out. I was just looking at the women who have been killed in recent, and I realized the majority of them are also killed with West African men. Then what are we doing about that? Men in Kenya are silent about that. They need to call them and tell them they also need to do a statement for West African countries, but they are silent because most of men are perpetrators and they normalize anything that happens to women. Thank you. Back to you.
Editor, I'm so glad that you mentioned Esther Pasari being your friend. Please let her know her silence is too loud. One, I don't know whether she's working behind the scenes, but we would want to see her on the forefront. We saw Senator Gloria talking about, she's in this fearful, like there's a lot of bunch of hogwash. As women who we elected in these positions is questionable. So, well, let your friend know, we don't really care about her. We have not seen her saying anything. You mentioned something about femicide not being in the penal code. I'm not very well versed with these laws, but we are willing to learn. Please tell us what we can do. Do we need to petition? Do we need to, have signatures to have that in the penal code? Can you elaborate that further for us?
I think, Noni, because you're a communication person, also need to elaborate. What we are doing right now, because already we have a petition, and after taking this petition, also it's upon us because we are the victims of femicide to push about this agenda to the next level. I'm not good also in legal frameworks, but because Gathoni is here and she's really well conversant with all these communication things, I think you are the best person to advise. But what I know, petition is one of the things that will help us push for this agenda. When this petition is received, we need a signature and stamp, and it's upon us again now to come up with a constant action plan. Like who is following what and who are we meeting, so that at least all these things, all the demands can be valid and certified. Noni, maybe you can help us with that.
So just to speak about why we are asking and pushing for femicide to be included in the penal code, but in policy and legislation overall, I'll give an example of My Dress, My Choice. So initially when we were pushing for, the act of stripping to be considered in the penal code, in policy reform, a lot of people are countering it and saying, but there's laws against gender-based violence, or there's laws against assault, or there's laws against certain things. But if you don't specify the distinctness of a crime, it is very difficult for it to be tracked. And currently, even when you look at even femicide, if you try and search for femicide numbers in Kenya, it's very difficult for us to actually get data because the government is actually not recording it. So they're not able to actually respond accordingly, most importantly, especially when it comes to education and awareness, especially with young men, because I always believe somebody should be rehabilitated before they become a criminal. What is happening now in society is that we are allowing this whole thing of, men can be violent, they can kill you for saying no to them for a date, or saying no to sex, or you cooked ugali badly and he didn't like it, so he can just murder you. We're cultivating a culture in which it is acceptable to kill a woman for whatever flimsy reason that you have. And so one of the reasons why we're pushing to have femicide in the penal code and have femicide recognized as an actual policy issue is so that we can actually have it as a deterrent. So you actually get specific, sentences around it, but also so that we can actually get funding behind curtailing this as a practice, and also supporting the police, supporting, the judicial system, supporting different educational efforts to curtail it. But I can see a lot of questions around what are the women reps saying, what are our leaders saying. We've received a lot of statements and we've seen quite a few statements. As it sits, the president's, gender advisor, editor, has said they condemn. The president himself has not said anything. Which I think, and we all know, is very problematic, considering that this is definitely a national security issue. When it comes to women leaders, KEWOPA, who are the Kenyan women in parliament, have actually issued a statement condemning this. We have a very strong statement from Honorable Nasra who is part of the Nairobi City County representatives, who has also issued a very strong statement. So they're making them. However, this is also a discussion I had today with a couple of media people that we've been outreaching to, which is, why aren't you sharing the same space for these women to give their statements as you are for very problematic voices? Because they're allowing a lot of very problematic voices to give statements around this issue, because media is riding off the fact that they're looking for eyeballs to get advertising. I'm sorry to say this as somebody who's a journalism student and somebody who's been engaging several media people for different interviews. But the reality is they're not actually sharing the reality on the ground, which is that there are women leaders who are condemning this and condemning this very strongly. However,
Honey, let me cut you short. You see, it would be very backward to at this day and age when you can have a platform. These politicians and women leaders have such a big following, they don't have to rely on traditional media to say something. All you need is your phone and a camera to just click on it and speak on this issue. Why do you need to be in a newspaper or a TV if you're not looking for political mileage? You don't need...
We are on the same page on this. I was saying the idea that nothing has been said is kind of what I'm giving a little bit of information around. Okay. However, I also believe it's very problematic for, in a country where we know majority of the leaders are actually men, the people who actually shape a lot of our policies are men, to only put it on women. And the reason I'm saying this is when we look at My Dress, My Choice, for us who remember, Esther Passaris was one of the biggest pushers for it, right? And I'm not back. I say, yes, we've engaged with her before, but she's editor's friend. I engage with her on different policy things, and she's always open to listen, right? But if you remember, the person who actually pushed for it to go through was actually Ruto. It's actually him. He's the one who got many. I know he's the one who got men in parliament to actually listen. Because the reality is men in these spaces listen to other men. Sure. So yes, I believe put pressure on the women representatives 100%. They're not doing enough. They're not showing up enough. Put pressure on them. But at the same time, we know how our country is structured. If these men in those spaces are not paying attention, are not willing to actually push things forward as well, we're going to have a situation in which this is a women's conversation, which it's not. It's not. We all voted for all of these people, regardless of gender. Yeah. They're our representatives.
Let's touch on 27th, Noni. I see so many questions. Security, let's just calm down a bit. Let's touch. I have nothing to remove. Let's touch on the 27th and the security around, the march. How prepared are we? Where do guys get t-shirts? How can guys support? Even as I've been trying to join Zaha. I don't know why it's not. I don't know. Mimi nimezeka. See, I press on this plus, it's not working. I don't know why. But let's talk about the situation around 27th. I'll be going to Nyeri the day before. So if you're in Nyeri, please come out. I think I need to be on the ground. So I'll be headed to Nyeri. So if you're from Nyeri, tupatane Nyeri. So let's just speak about the situation on 27th and security most importantly, because we're talking about safety. But akuja watufanyie vitu kwa tujui kwa match. How is the situation?
Yeah, editor.
Well, thank you, Kate. So for us, this is what we did because we realized that we've gone to different demonstrations and most of them has been successful. But again, what we realized, we are just comparing the previous demonstrations and this one. So today personally, I met people in my community and I was supported with feminists in Kenya. And when we came together, we were trying to look and analyze critically what happened in previous elections, because personally I've been arrested in different elections and it is not a sweet thing. And we prioritize security and safety.
So we've done our absolute to make sure that we have everything lined up, but we don't know. However, for the majority of us, as I initially shared in the End Femicide movement, we've said either way, we're still going to go to the streets. So what we are asking Kenyans is, come. Very rare, especially women's protests are disrupted in that way from a government perspective. But in terms of our organizing, we are checking all the boxes to make sure everything is tick, tick, tick. So when someone is asking, can we have security? You cannot have the police guarding you in a march. It's not a thing that happens. But you can
no need to share,
so that
sorry to share some sense.
Yeah.
The police have proven to us that it's actually impossible for them to take care of us. So I think even as we speak about security, we should speak it amongst ourselves in terms of what are some of the potential things protesters are supposed to know. Number one, I think it's usually very important to remind protesters to ensure that they're on airplane mode. Also, there's this thing we call buddy system in the very many protests we've had, whereby you tell a friend where you are, and necessarily if you're coming, you come over with a friend as well, because the groupings allow you to ensure some safety amongst yourselves. Airplane mode also allows you to be able to protest without being necessarily tracked. Again, once you see the executive not taking full responsibility in speaking about these issues, then we should definitely have some loopway of expecting absolutely anything. And police have been known to attack whether it's a legalized protest or not. So I think also banking on the fact that us as protesters means ensuring that we're also not destroying people's properties, that we're also not deviating the course of the protest, then we should be fine. First of all, my apologies. I don't know what keeps happening. Again, Kate, maybe you're right. The system is definitely against the conversation.
And but the camera is not on my... Everything is clear. I don't understand. Sabotage. But can you guys hear us? Because I think it's more important for us to be heard than to be seen. I hope they can hear.
I hope so. Maybe they can confirm to us. But I wanted to give some 2 cents addressing of a gap. And I like what Editor was saying. But the representation in the penal code would have been significant. But also I think mainstreaming the information is also very relevant. We have this discussion here that's happening in English. A majority of these cases where they're happening is places like Ndiwa, Homa Bay. It's places like, rural areas whereby maybe the language has not been addressed to full completion. So again, mainstream media cannot be utilized to share this information on the news because again, what we see in the news is tragedy. And then you see the energy that's being supplied to the rest of the population is the energy of fear. And so they don't direct the information towards the fact that it's a femicide going on, rather that it's just a wave of women being killed going on. And even if we see the headlines, the language that is utilized, it does not necessarily bring the attention back to the perpetrator. It diverts the attention back to the victim. And that's why you're seeing the cases of victim blaming are actually insane. Because when you see a population of people, or rather a society that hates its women, to a point that even after they are dead... Sorry. Can you hear me? Where did you lose us from? That's me myself.
From the victim, where the attention is diverted to the victim and not to the perpetrator.
Okay. When what I'm saying is when the attention on the headlines is diverted to the victim rather than the perpetrator, then whatever the public outcry sees is the fact that somebody died and not necessarily that someone was killed. Does that make sense? And
yes.
So even the language that they utilize in sharing this information is not valid and it's not fair. And I think when you find a society that hates its women enough, because again, when we're discussing these things, for example, even the analytics that we're having with the UN Women, it's a hate crime that systemically brings the most outrageous extremes on violence, and that ends up being the murder. When the language itself takes us back to the victim and the shaming of how they died and diverts the discussion of what they were doing before, then we also do not necessarily counteractively address the situation. Vernacular languages should have been implemented, because I've been trying to listen to the radio stations, at Gikuyu FM or whatever it is, like in Ainoro, and you find that even when they're also having the discussion, it's diverted into what necessarily might have caused the death. People don't understand that a murderer and a criminal's mind, it's very planned. It's somebody that sits down, creates a systemic way in which they are able to actually get to actually murder. we just saw a Nairobi Kenyan man fly all the way to go kill the partner abroad. So we're not talking about situations whereby it's an oops or it's a mistake. People need to understand the masterminds of criminal minds. They plan accordingly, and it's criminals and murderers.
Premeditated.
Sorry?
It's premeditated. They've taken time to plan the whole thing.
Yes, they're taking time. And people should understand the cruelty in this, and that's why we're talking about the word extreme. The cruelty in this is the fact that before somebody as a human being necessarily convinces themselves to take the life of another person, and you see, men should really avoid this whole discussion of, oh, more men are killed. That's not the point. The point is that this is an intentional killing of women, and we're not trying to say that men are not being killed, but you have the platform. Here, us as women, whenever we try and stand up for our voices, because systemically we are not put in a place, or rather we're not given the opportunity to exist as human beings. As women, we're always up in arms. As women, we're always having to be alert. To what extent do we need to be alert to a point where we are successfully safe? It's not available. Why? Because the systems around us not allow us to have, whenever at ease as women. I'm worried about the person that is inside my house. I'm worried about a stranger. I'm worried about the person outside my house. I'm worried about my friends. Because anybody might just be here planning to kill me at any particular point. And so I feel like even how we speak about this issue is also a problem. And then look at what the government is doing. It's like a picky ponky. It's like I can't speak on it because also it does not generate an amount of money that comes to my office. Because I feel like if this was an issue that creates a lot of economic value, and when I say economic value, it basically means where there's donor funding coming into programs and things like that, every politician would be outside, and that's what we saw in COVID time. Everybody was speaking about it. But now, since it's an idea of, we're talking about women being murdered, you can clearly see that we live in a very demonic and a very hateful society, whereby even after women are being beheaded on TV, it's still not bringing public outcry. That we still have to go on another extreme for it to make sense that it's actually a problem. That our policy framework have failed the men, and they have in memorial have continuously failed the women to a point where we now have to fight and make it clear that we deserve to exist. So you see, it's a very systemic playbook. And so even as people are heading to the protest, intentionally understand you're not marching because of anything. It's so clear. Femi said the definition of femicide is so clear. It's you to stop. I think when we say men, is because when we look at the data, a majority of the killers are men. So men should not also stop telling us that stop generalizing. It is the silence of good men that increases the evil. So none of you is helping us at this point.
And
so
I'm so glad that you're talking about that narrative, because I've been saying it. Sorry to cut you off on the comments. It's like, oh, not all men. This not all men narrative is tired, because not only are we fighting for our right to life, we also fight for you guys, because you sit down and do nothing. When your men are being killed by your own species, you sit down. By your own gender, you sit down and say nothing. And women, I have used my platform severally to fight for justice for male victims. We fought for Jeff with our hearts out. But they don't speak. Where are the men? Where are the influential men in the society? Where are they? But when we speak for our own, you want to hijack the conversation?
Problem. It's what were they wearing? It's why did they? What would provoke you, especially because even us, especially as feminists, as activists, as women leaders, we hear about how strong and emotionally stable men are, right? And so you'd want to wonder, what exactly would put you out of character as a stable man to a point where you become a murderer intentionally? What exactly is it that you cannot be able to control within, that you have to stab a woman for it to make right? And you see, men also have to understand you need to stop the identification of your strength with violence, because a lot of cases of this issue on femicide is also very cross-cutting with GBV. Gender-based violence has also been a story in time memorial, because before a person actually takes up the courage to kill you, they have also for a long time taken the courage to beat you up over and over again, and that's why domestic violence is actually a leading cause in these numbers. It's the same husband that beat you on Tuesday and you forgave it, and then, again, as women, we're very empathetic, and so we always have that hope syndrome. I hope for the better, I hope for him to change, and this person that you're so hopefully for ends up killing you. And so men should really stop that narrative. It's you men that don't take accountability for your own brothers that are causing this issue. And so you're an enabler, and you need to understand that you're an enabler. And for these women that feel like, you know, at this particular point when us as women, we need to stand in solidarity, that this is the time now you start saying, but also, I saw this one on Twitter. I think we were all pissed off at the campaign group. This one who was talking about in the something of Airbnb, it was on Facebook. And I'm like, the only case whereby it was an Airbnb case was two in this whole scenarios. The rest, it's husbands. Then the one girl who was beheaded. It is in our own home.
Yeah.
This diversion. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but
Noni has given the statistics. Just to recap, Noni has just given us, just in case you're joining us, and she has given us the statistics. And she said, out of the 546 deaths, 241 are by husbands, 130 by boyfriends. And this area that I want to like base this and center this conversation around is 99 deaths by strangers. Let that one, for the men talking about moral, I don't know morals and what, please note, let us sink in. 241 deaths.
The numbers are clear. So we need to be driven.
I've taken over your moderation. I told you I'm emotional about this, but no need to.
I think a lot of people are joining to the conversation a little bit later. So I'd like to just take it back and reintroduce this conversation and explain what the End Femicide movement is. So I can see a lot of questions around inclusion of people with disabilities, inclusion of their communities. I would like to reiterate, the End Femicide movement is a collective of over 1,000 organizations across the country that reflect the length and breadth of Kenyan women's experiences. So this includes as well women media, women politicians, includes LGBTQ plus people, includes people in disabilities. It's an inclusive.
Sure. What a day. Kat Felix is asking to tume bundles. Oh my God, guys, I don't know why. Yo, the devil is wearing suspenders today. The devil is wearing suspenders. Please don't leave this conversation, guys. Let's keep talking. Yo, Aida Alisha, yo. Leo lazima tuzungumze leo. Let me add.
Nimekuwa nikiambia watu karibu memba, karibu mwanaharakati.
Jamani.
Tumezoea.
Karibuni tena. I don't even know what to tell you guys now. I hope they're still the same audience, but in case you're joining us, we are discussing we are talking about the upcoming protest on Saturday against femicide. We are calling, amplifying our voices. It's a call for action to the stakeholders, the government, the leaders, community, and to us as citizens to protect our movement. Women have a right to life. We are not begging, we are demanding, we are not asking. It's a right. So, and to recap, Noni, on the statistics she's just given us, there have been 546 femicide cases. And out of those, 241 are by husbands. So before you jump into the comment section, talking to us about morals and how we should have values as women, please note, 241 out of these deaths are caused by husbands, 130 by boyfriends. And this issue that you're trying to center is only 99 deaths. So I'll take it back to Noni as I try to join in Zaha to continue with the conversation.
So we're giving the update because we were seeing a lot of questions about how inclusive the End Femicide movement is. And initially, as I had mentioned when we started this conversation, the End Femicide movement is a collective of over 1,000 organizations across the country. It is inclusive from an ability perspective. It is inclusive in terms of gender expression and sexual orientation. In the perspective of, if you're talking about women, then why are you bringing this, as they call it, the rainbow agenda into it, right? But lesbians are also women. Trans women are women. They face disproportionately, the worst cases of violence. I'm saying that disproportionately, A lot of the women who are vulnerable are poor women, are women with different gender orientations, sexual orientations, disabled women. So we are an inclusive platform in that sense. In terms of the details on the march, when we started the live, I mentioned the march is going to be in the 3 cities. So that's Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu. It's also going to be in Nakuru, in Busia, in Machakos, in Kilifi, and Nakuru. I've mentioned Nakuru, yes. All the details for where the marches are being shared on the Usikimwe account. It's being shared on the Feminists in Kenya account. It's being shared on the End Femicide KE account. It's also being shared in the YWLI_Kenya account. So you'll be able to find yes, Nyeri. Thank you, Mary Liz. Yes, I forgot Nyeri. So all of these details are being shared on those accounts. And Eldoret as well. Apologies. Yes, Eldoret and Nyeri. So all of these details are being shared on those accounts if you want to join the marches. Also, just to note, Nyeri is the only place that is having its march on Friday.
And I'll be there.
Saturday. Nyeri is the only one it's on Friday. And please also go and note the times for your different locations. For example, Nyeri is starting at 8 a.m. on Friday. Nairobi is happening at 10 a.m. on Saturday. And each location has different times as to when they're starting the marches. So please follow those accounts. Please look at the details so that you can come into the march. Zaha given pointers on how to come to the protest. In terms of just having a buddy system, come with a friend or tell a friend where you are. Share your live location with a couple of people just in case anything happens to you, right? People are able to trace you. However, I'd like to also just reiterate that we are working our absolute best to get legal support, to get first aid support, to have psychosocial support. That's something that we're all working on for each and every one of these marches.
Thank you so much. And the resources, Noni, I know that people want to support, there are people who want to buy T-shirts for other people. Can you touch on that a little bit?
So you can reach out to those accounts I've mentioned. You can also reach out to my Instagram, and I'll link you up with the resource mobilization lead. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Just go back to,
So I was going to say, if you reach out to any of those accounts, they will link you to Felista Abdallah, who's our head of resource mobilization nationally. If you also send me a message, I'll also link you up to Felista Abdallah in case you want to provide support in terms of T-shirts, water, whatever be it may. So Felista Abdallah is leading for us that nationally, and we'll link you up to her.
All right, Noni and Zaha, just to recap on why are women marching on Saturday, just in case there's a man who joined. We have so many male allies. So grateful for them. Thank you so much for those who are willing to learn and unlearn. So just to recap on why women are marching on Saturday, like we've done since time immemorial.
Noni, you want to go, or I can take it up?
So I think someone is asking me to repeat the accounts to be followed.
Sure.
So Feminists Kenya. Feminists in Kenya, and you can also see them. Kate has been tagging them in her content around femicide. There's Feminists in Kenya. There's Usikimwe. There's YWLI_Kenya, and there's End Femicide KE. You'll be able to see all the information.
Yeah, so you can check.
Noni.
Yeah.
Noni, people can also note that, especially since we are working on the same campaign, if at all they cannot be able to hear them, on Kate's page, or Noni's page, on my page, you can easily there and reference, because we tag the organizations we're working with.
Yeah. So, and security, of course, being a big issue, that the organizers are doing their best to ensure that we have security. But like you said, come with a buddy, the buddy system, come with a friend, make sure you have your location on, send your location to your people. It's a protest. To how it goes, but I feel we are women and we know where we're marching, and I don't think we have any intention of destroying anyone's property unless tuchokozwe. Sisi hatuna shida, sisi kazi yetu ni kumarch na kuongea. That's all we need to do.
And I think also people need to carry, you can take a moment and carry a mask, especially because there's a lot of congestion, there's a lot of dust. This is also to ensure that we have as little or minimal casualties. Of course, we're having, I think, Team Red Cross Noni coming in to assist in terms of first aid. But again, like Kate was saying, the buddy system allows you to have a comprehensive analysis of your environment. So you can be consciously aware of yourself and your friends around, and through that buddy system, you're able to take care of each other in a protest. And I think Noni is also important to touch on the psychological effects of the person attending the protest, especially since I know a majority of us, it's going to be your first protest to be able to be there. Logically have a moment within yourself so that you can be able to align with the purpose of the march. This is also so that you can be able to have enough emotional intelligence to carry on the entire protest till the end. Because again, we're going to be reading out gruesome cases from the data that we've had from 2016. There's going to be a lot of vigil moments whereby we actually remember these women. There's going to be singing out and crying out and, speaking out on how these issues have, and this can be very triggering to those people that maybe unfortunately have been able to experience or actually have been survivors of femicide issues. So also have that preparedness within yourself, but it's also just good for you to be fully aware of the purpose of the march.
All right, Nyeri people, I'll be there with you. So I'm really looking forward to the march with my Nyeri people down there. So, Noni, I don't know whether you have something else to add.
The last question you asked before we end this live, which is why I'm marching. As Kate has shared, when you look at the statistics, honestly, I think, and I'll speak from a personal perspective, I'm not even going to speak from a perspective of somebody who's part of the meeting team, but it scares me within an inch of my life, the idea that I can be killed in my own home, which is the reality of most women, or that a friend might have had feelings for me and somehow I didn't reciprocate how he wanted, and I can be killed. And it's not just about me. I think it's such a failing of our country and our culture as people who like to present themselves as proud Kenyans, because we like dragging everybody on the internet. If they say something about Kenya, we're there to fight. If we are one of the people who are very, passionate about our flag. We are the pioneers of this bracelet. that a woman's life is so flimsy and that anybody can take it for any reason. And so for me, I think marching is about, once and for all, asking our administration to truly take this seriously, because it is of national security. If in 8 days, 4 women can be brutally murdered, and I won't even get into the details because I think we all know the details of all of these murders. That is shocking. To open the new year into that is very shocking. And then to see the narrative that people have when the statistics say a completely different thing, honestly, no, we have to march. We have to march. We have to make our demands clear. The government needs to do much more to protect women and girls and basically, vulnerable communities.
Sure. I don't know whether Zaha, you have something to add?
Yeah, for sure. I think for some of us, it's been a very exhausting month. And you see, unfortunately, this happens to be some of our birthday months, and we opened our birthdays with fear and cases and chaos. And I think also it's in the spirit of the day that we also need to march. It's in the respect on the fact that their lives were taken without their consent. It's the fact that they brutally had to endure death that they don't deserve. And you see, the fact that that we have to be on the streets to emphasize that we deserve to be alive is also very painful. And I think when we sit down within ourselves as women, I hope, and when we say men, honestly, however you want to take it, men, you should really look upon this as, it should really be a wake-up call. It should really be a call to action. If they are doing it to us, if they are killing us in such methods, can you imagine what they are doing to their fellow men? And for you to also be very, very quiet about these insensitive, gruesome, hateful methods of murder that that are going through to women, I think for us, we are also marching to the fact that it's not right for us to be in the streets to remind the world that we need to be alive and that we deserve to be alive and that we deserve to be safe and that we deserve to breathe and that we deserve to be comfortable in a space and that we deserve to stay put comfortably without thinking that somebody might be there planning my murder or rather thinking about killing me, that we deserve to breathe not knowing that the next victim is probably us. Like, it needs to be an alarm, and we are marching in solidarity with all the women, all the females in the entire country. And you're seeing even, I think, in the attention of what is happening globally, especially as a diplomat myself, you're checking cases of Israel. We're dealing with data that is mostly on women and children. You come to Congo, you come to Sudan, in spaces whereby a woman is raped every 5 minutes. You see, it should raise an alarm. In a continent where our social communals and our social norms protect and respect women, our men are really failing us. Africa is leading the world in cases of femicide, and we are doing a good 20,000 yearly. In a continent where our cultures enriched in us with the love for our women, in a lot of matriarchal systems, in a lot of care for women, it is such a shame that we as women, we as African women have to be outside to remind the world that we need to stay alive. We're marching for a reminder. We are marching to call upon everybody in the earth that we women are being killed. And the point is clear. We wouldn't have to be fighting for our lives if men should just stop killing us. You just need to stop killing women. It's as simple as that. And we'll march until that makes sense. I think that's it.
So I think because we started this session by reading a few names and giving a moment of silence. Your Grace, I'd like to end it by reading a couple more names and a moment of silence as we end this live. So I will read about Emmy Chepkosgei Mite, who was doused in petrol and set on fire by her husband in her parents' home. Twice with an axe by Naftali Kinuthia, who had sent her threatening messages before and stalked her and killed her in broad daylight while she was in university. Dead. The police suspect she was murdered by her boyfriend. The police were unable to arrest the culprit because he unalived himself afterwards. And these are just names. 546 names is not even an easy thing.
Yeah. Sorry, no, we lost you somewhere.
Sorry, I was saying it's never an easy thing to read these names. It's never an easy thing to read the circumstances in which they died. And these are just a few names. So I would like us to end this by just like holding space for them for a minute, and just understanding that beyond the marches, this needs to truly end. These crimes are barbaric beyond. And 546 names is not an easy thing to read. And I can see people, let's not make it about gender, but the reality is
let's work with data. Don't even address that. Let's work with data.
Hear it? I don't know. So let's just hold a moment of silence for their names. Thank you.